All right, so tonight is March 6th of 2023 for our Franklin Lakes Parent Advisory Group. And we have Nicole Kuznick presenting on multisensory reading. And Nicole, I'm going to step out and you can just, do you want me to advance the first one?
Yes, so.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll be right back.
All right, well, thank you everybody for joining me tonight. So we are going to cover a couple things for multisensory reading tonight. First, as you can see in the first slide, I'm just going to go over all of the components that make up skills reading, show you where multisensory reading fits into that. Then go over what multisensory reading is, what a lesson looks like, demonstrate a couple of things, talk about what multisensory reading looks like in special ed here at Franklin Lakes, break down a couple of the components, and then give you some tips or strategies for home. If at any point you have questions or something's unclear, please stop me. Sometimes I know the lingo I'm talking about, but if you don't know, please just stop me. We're a small enough group that hopefully I can answer questions as we go. So reading is a very complex skill, as we know. This is Hollis Scarborough's reading rope. She is a leading reading researcher, and she created this infographic to show how all of the components of reading work together to create skilled reading. So tonight we're going to talk about these strands down here. This is the word recognition, so the actual reading of the words on the page. But there's also this whole piece up here of language comprehension. Steve and I were talking that maybe at a later date or next year or something, I could come back and we could talk more about what this part looks like. But just to quickly go over, so in the word recognition skills, you have phonological awareness, which is the ability to manipulate the sounds in words, in spoken words. Decoding, which is the ability to read the actual words on the page. So from the simplest words to more advanced words. As these two develop, then sight recognition develops. So that is the goal of reading, is that you don't have to stop and decode every word, but that it starts to become automatic, and then that's where the fluency comes in. So as these things become increasingly automatic, students start to and are simultaneously working on their language comprehension. So the skills here are their background knowledge. So what do they bring to the table that they know or that they have learned or experienced? Vocabulary, the words mean. Language structure. So these are things like phonology, prefixes, suffixes, roots, all of the structure of the language. Verbal reasoning. These are the metacognitive skills. Can they inference? Can they determine things of character? And then literacy knowledge is the knowledge of the print on the page, the genre, the text structure. All of these are working together to build the strategies of reading. So multisensory reading kind of falls down here, although you do touch on other things as well. And up here are some of the skills learned in more of like a reading workshop, the comprehension and other things that are developed. So all of these work together to build a skilled reader. So although we're going to focus down here tonight, this is equally as important to developing a skilled reader.
And so when they talk about the reading wars, right, like that's like the popular culture war, is like the word recognition versus language comprehension, but it seems kind of silly because it sounds like what you're saying, that you need both of them to be a skilled reader. It's not one or the other.
Yes, so you need to be taught explicitly how to read, and you also need to be taught how to comprehend. I think what people are battling is that this wasn't being taught, and people were being taught like whole word reading.
Okay.
And within that was some other program stuff that is important. So they're, I think, battling each isn't the right thing. You need some of what was here, and then you also need to be taught explicitly how to read. So feel like trying to pit the two against each other isn't correct. You need to be taught the explicit reading and the comprehension. The multisensory part is very important, which is what I think people think was missing. But yeah, you do need some of the other stuff that came from the workshop model and other things as well. Okay, so what is multisensory reading? So multisensory learning can be for reading or for math, but whatever it is, involves the use of the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic tactile pathways simultaneously. So instead of just looking at words on the page and reading them, you're also tying in either the sense of touch or the auditory as well. And in multisensory reading, usually we use all three simultaneously. There's tons of scientific research that has been done that shows that this is how the brain best retains information. So yes, the connections are consistently reinforced between what you see, what you hear, and what you can feel. We'll demonstrate some of this later, but things like sandpaper, sand, screens, even these little fidget puppet things can be used to help incorporate the kinesthetic and the tactile. Students then learn through all of these methods that there is a reliable system for the English language. A lot of people look at reading and spelling and think, oh, there's too many rules. There's all these things that break the rules. 84% of the English language is actually predictable. So students can learn through multisensory reading 84% of those patterns. And then we also teach them whatever high frequency, sight words, heart words, the terminology, red words is constantly changing, but we teach them to learn those other 16% that are not phonetically able to be learned. So this approach, multisensory learning, has been around for decades. Almost probably like 100 years ago, they started doing this research. It has been branded different ways. It's been, sold different ways, but no matter what program it is, it's still teaching the same skills of decoding and encoding using patterns and rules of the English language. So that doesn't change. So a multisensory lesson has a few key components. It's direct, it's systematic and cumulative, it's explicit, it's prescriptive, and it's diagnostic. So what that means is that it's going to follow a specific scope and sequence. So skills are going to build on each other, and they're going to be taught very explicitly. Okay, it's going to be taught that if we're learning the letter B today, right, we're focusing clearly on the letter B, and words that use that. Then if we're learning the next vowel, okay, we're learning O today, it says ah, now I'm going to tie the B in, but I'm focusing on O, and everything is building on each other, but students know explicitly and specifically what the skill is that they are learning, and it's tied in all different multisensory activities. Students are constantly assessed so that, if they're ready to move on to the next skill or if they need more review. And that assessment is going to drive the instruction for the student or group of students and their learning. A multisensory lesson includes, depending on the age, okay, it's going to look very different for a kindergartner versus an 8th grader. So I'm going to go over the things it kind of may include depending. It's going to include phonogram card drills. So again, this depends on the age, but they look something like this, depending on what the students have learned. It can go just from consonants and vowels to more advanced things like R-controlled vowels or blends or whatever it may be. If it's an even older student, it may look something like having prefixes, suffixes, or roots that they're going through. After they do them visually, they're going to listen to auditory, and they may sand in here, which I thought I was going to open a big mess. So they then may trace it in the sand or on a screen or sandpaper, again, tying in the multiple learning modalities. Phonemic awareness activities, there's an asterisk there because we're going to touch back on that later, but phonemic awareness, like I said before, is the ability to manipulate sounds. So we may think that this is just something for younger students because there's actually no print in front of them, but there are older students who still need to work on this as well. So a lot of multisensory reading lessons are going to have some of that tied in. There is always a new lesson concept that builds on previously learned material. The asterisk is there again, because later I'm going to just demonstrate what some of the skills you may see in the lesson look like. Spelling concepts are taught. You're not teaching students to memorize the spelling of words. So they're going to learn specific spelling rules and spelling patterns so that if they hear a word later on, they didn't have to learn that word if they learned the pattern. And dictation of spelling words is done using multisensory strategies. So for example, if you were going to spell let's say a short word, you were going to spell the word cat. Okay, the student is going to say the word cat. They're going to sound it because it has one syllable. And then they're going to tap out the sound. Cat. Okay, cat. And then they're going to go back and cat. Every tap has a sound. If it is an older student or more advanced student and they're doing multisyllabic words, they're going to do fantastic. Fantastic. It's got 3 syllables and they're going to go back. Fan. If they need to tap, they can still tap the sounds. And they're going to learn to spell syllable by syllable. I'm sure you've seen, if you have older children that have, if they're going to spell longer, where they get lost somewhere in the middle. Teaching them to go syllable by syllable breaks it apart, so it's more, it's easier to accomplish spelling that long word.
And with
So
that,
again,
and with that spelling, so that's a shift for many classrooms. So I don't know if we're all there yet, but the shift from the spelling test. It's not that the spelling test is going away, is what I'm hearing you saying, but like we're testing on a rule, not here's 10 words, go home and memorize it, but like here's the rule, and we could, on the day of the assessment,
Give
assess
any
the
words.
rule. Yeah, any words that apply to the rule.
So I'm not opposed to a spelling test. If I say I taught you this rule, and then on Friday, I'm gonna give you 10 words that follow that rule and some that don't. So you don't just know to put a CK in all the words, 'cause that's what we learned this week. But you're checking their knowledge. Did they retain that rule? Can they then apply it? Yes, so there is a place for spelling learning, but it's not just a list with 10 words that don't have any, meaning to them.
And I think that's probably even a shift we're still making within the district right now. So you are still seeing 10 words coming home. It's something with Nicole's guidance, we can work on improving.
Yes. You may also see in the multisensory lesson morphology practice. So morphology are the smallest units of meaning in a word, so prefixes, suffixes, roots. So I learned that jet means to throw, and all the words are going to have the root jet in them. Because if you teach kids the smaller units of meaning, they can read and understand so many more words. Because now every time they say jet, they know it has something to do with throw, even if it doesn't always sort of make sense, right? Like in injection, you're throwing something into your body, but they can at least have some kind of idea. There's definitely going to be fluency practice, right? So now we're not just gonna be reading individual words. We're gonna take whatever skill, put it in sentences, passages. It's always gonna start with controlled text. So what that means is that it's decodable. So it carries everything that they've learned. And then as they get more advanced, the text is gonna become non-controlled, which means just like your regular trade books or articles or other things. And then there is comprehension, handwriting, and writing practice as well in a multisensory lesson. Okay, so just really quickly, back to our rope. So here's what we're touching on. I'm going to show you very quickly what's being done for phonological awareness here in district and decoding and encoding. So in Frontal Lakes, phonemic awareness is being targeted in kindergarten. This year, I believe they started with the Haggerty program. You want to try to build those skills as early as you can because they are the prerequisites for reading. Doesn't mean that you can only do them in kindergarten, but it's a great place to start, right? Started with our youngest learners. It is a research-based program. It's a phonological awareness curriculum. It increases in skill level, right? Starts with easiest things like rhyming and alliteration and moves on up to more complex skills. It does by the end start to introduce letter sounds so that they're ready to read. After kindergarten, we have Wilson Foundations, which is another research-based program. It is structured literacy, meaning that they're going to be explicitly taught the skills. And it is a reading, spelling, and writing curriculum that focuses on the learning rules and patterns of the English language like we just spoke about. The special education staff in district are all being trained in Gillingham this year, and I think by the end of this year, right?
Yeah, I think maybe by the end of the week.
Okay, by the end of this year. And that will be from K to 8, all the special educators will have that. And again, it's a multi-sensory approach that follows all those other things I was discussing. So that's being used as well.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So K to 8.
K to 5,
K to 5. oh,
K to
sorry.
5, that's okay.
Okay, and then what happens to middle school?
Then next year, we're gonna loop back and get the middle school teachers trained that need the training. So we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, this was an unbudgeted training, and I think we're training up to around 10-ish people that are going out for the training. So we start with the youngest learners first, and then we're looping in the middle school teachers next year.
Yeah, that's like the basic training for these. Are they going back for more in depth?
So it all depends on the person who's doing the work and what the needs are. So, like when Nicole and I were Ringwood, we had some teachers who just did the 30 hours. That was like our gen ed teachers, everyone, and then we had some teachers who were going back for the 60 hours and ongoing training with the reading specialists, so. So it depends on what the needs are. That's gonna look very different from a teacher who's teaching in-class resource versus a teacher who's teaching in an LLD class, the level of training.
So to break down phonological awareness, these are the prerequisites for reading. There are different levels, and it's going to start off more basic and then more complex. So it's going to start off with rhyming and alliteration. So the ability to identify rhymes and produce them. And then alliteration is to recognize the initial sounds in words. Sentence segmentation is the child hears a sentence and can literally break apart the words and count how many words there are. Usually little counters are used. Syllables, so breaking a word apart, the old like clapping up the syllables, or being able to blend syllables together, like computer and making a computer. Again, you can see how being able to do that would transfer over to being able to read multisyllabic words. You need to be able to blend syllables together before you can read and blend syllables together. Onset and rhymes, you will notice that is spelled differently. It is not a spelling error. Okay, this kind of rhyme is a different rhyme than the one like cat and bat. An onset is the initial consonants in a word. So if the word was bat, the b is the onset, the rhyme is the vowel after, so at. So being able to take b and at and put it together. In Hegarty, they actually do those multi-sensory things. They would go b, at, and then pop it together to make that. And then the reverse, being able to separate b and at those apart. All leading up to phonemic awareness. You see the big star, because this is where they need to get to and accomplish in order to become a skilled reader. Phonemic awareness is more complex manipulation of sounds in words. So the ability to take something like act and understand that that makes cat. The reverse, being able to segment that, and these would get longer too. Like you could do a word like springs, and be able to put that together. And then most advanced is deleting and manipulating the sounds in spoken words. So if I was to say the word is blue, now say that again, but instead of b, say g, right? So they can change blue to blue. It's important to note that none of this has any letters. So it's easier for me to write blue and change the G and then you see blue. But the way I like to remember the difference between phonological awareness and phonics is that you could do this with your eyes closed. Okay, I should be able to do all of these activities because it's all the listening and manipulation of sounds. That being said, a lot of hands-on things are used with this, but the difference is that none of this requires you to see any letters, which is why it's the prerequisites for reading. Because if you can do all of that, then the hope is that when you see printed words on paper, you can manipulate them as well. So just a couple quick things. At home, there are a whole bunch of things here. If phonemic awareness or phonological awareness is something you need to work on at home. Very simple, play rhyming games, right? What rhymes with this, or these two words, or these three words rhyme. Have your child block out the syllables. Practice blending sounds into words, right? Like you said, it. And ask your child to blend that together. You can do with syllables too. Fantastic. Having them blend together. All of this, by the way, great for like road trips, in the car, waiting in line outside school, right? It doesn't take very long and you can do them kind of off the top of your head. Going on a sound hunt, right? How many things can you find? Car or outside and start with this letter. In the kitchen, let's start with the t sound. I should be clear there, not the letter, the sound, right? This is all sounds, not letters. Or end with a specific sound. Play, I'm going on a trip. I'm going on a trip and I'm bringing things that start with the b sound. What might I bring? Or you could do, I'm bringing things that end with the t sound. You could play I Spy with a whole bunch of different things depending on where your child is at. I spy something that starts with I spy a cat. I spy something that rhymes with cat. And again, you can obviously vary this depending on the level of your child. Or different word riddles. What rhymes with hand, what starts with a sound, and you're changing the word in some way. So all different ways to practice phonological awareness at home.
And I was just mentioning here, we'll post this presentation to the
That would be
website as
great. I
well,
kind of
so,
thought so.
so no one has to worry about jotting,
Yeah.
because these are some, great activities to do.
Okay. In multisensory reading, the big focus is teaching the patterns and the rules of the English language, right? The decoding, the reading, and the encoding, the spelling. So this is on a continuum, okay? It starts with the most basic individual sounds, then you're gonna build on that all the way up to the more advanced morphology. So I thought we would do like super quick crash course in some of these skills. So like I said, they're gonna learn the basic letters, then they're gonna start to learn syllable types. The most two common syllable types in the English language are the open and closed. If you can read those two syllable types and you can learn the syllable patterns, you can read 75% of the word in the English language. So again, that's why we start with those things and then build to the other syllable types. So an open syllable is one that ends. Now, use your imagination, that says no, thank you. Okay, so an open syllable ends with a vowel. Okay, students learn that there's nothing blocking it, it's open, it can say its name. I always put the little thing like it's yelling out its name, okay? That says no, long vowel. Once it gets closed in, it can no longer say its name. Okay, it makes a short sound, it's a closed syllable. Okay, they're learning this pretty early on because that teaches them already a ton of words. Then they learn that these can be combined. They learn to look for the vowels and then to know how to split them. And these are all the syllabification rules. Okay, this might seem kind of foreign to kids, but once they start to learn the patterns, they start to learn how to use it, how to apply it, and then they internalize that. That whole internalization is called orthographic mapping. And it's actually the ability to start to internally recognize the rules and not have to do this in every word, not have to mark everything up. But teaching the patterns and the syllables opens up just so many words to them, and really pretty quickly too, which is really nice. They do learn all of the more complex syllable types as well. Vowel teams, two vowels together that make one sound. The old like first vowel does the talking thing, not a good rule. Okay, it only works so many times, so they actually have to learn what they all say. Magic E, the E makes the vowel say its name. R controls, R takes over, and consonant LE is that there's like a CLE or ELE like in bubble or circle. So they learn the syllable types, they learn the syllabification patterns, and then reading and spelling open up to them.
And I mean, traditionally reading in the past hasn't used syllabification many times, that oftentimes learners are able to pick up reading more easily. But when I would do your observations in Ringwood and I saw you doing the syllabification with kids, and I saw them breaking, like, as an adult, you showed me that there was like meaning behind the English language and a science to reading that as like an adult reader, you don't realize you're naturally doing. And to see the students picking it up, it felt like a black magic. It was really incredible.
No, it's really cool. And you see them start to feel really proud when they can go in and break the syllables, identify them,
Yeah.
make the long words, spell the long words. Because if you can break it into chunks, you can spell some pretty long, complex words without even realizing, because you can spell the little parts. You can read the little parts and then put it together. And kids usually feel pretty proud when they can start to mark it all up and read all the more complex stuff. Yeah, I think it's like that, there's a certain percentage, but it's 30% of kids, special education or not, need to be taught explicitly in this way. So by doing it this way, you're not hurting anybody, but you're certainly helping a lot of learners. Which is why it's so important, and it's just why there's a lot of buzz about it.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so how can we deal with that? So if your child is having trouble decoding monosyllabic words or individual syllables, so the smaller parts, you can encourage them to tap out the sounds, right? Make it multisensory. If they don't like tapping like this, they could tap on the table. I teach my older students, tap on your leg, right? Nobody has to know, and you don't want to be like banging on the table. They can also start to, right, even if they're still struggling, right? What's the first sound? second, you can have them just do the first two, that's called successive blending. So have them do the first two and then scoop the last one in. Putting their finger under it, sometimes even that just makes it multisensory, right? There's actually science that's been done at the tip of your finger sends it up to your brain. I tell them that all the time too. If they're experiencing difficulty with multisyllabic words, right? And if you know they know the lingo, encourage them to split it up, right? Where are the vowels? Where would you split that? What type of syllable is that? You can reinforce some of the language. Again, they can use their hands to cover parts of the word, right? Just focus on this and this and this and put it together. Sometimes just encouraging them, the bottom part, to look through the whole word. You will see kids start to look at this and, you know, say something else that's, I don't know why nugget, I just saw my son chicken nuggets, so nugget came to mind, but they just guess anything with the first sound. So encouraging them to look through the whole word and not just guessing. And if they're really stuck, model for them how you would sound it out, and then go back and have them reread the whole sentence. For fluency, the old rereading strategy is still the best. Research supported strategy is rereading. So if it was really choppy, have them go back and reread it. Or if you had to model blends, sounding out the word for them, have them now go back and put it into the sentence. Same thing for spelling, would go the same way, right? Tap out the sounds, chunk it by syllable, just some easy ways you can support them at home. Last slide. These are 4 apps of apps out there. But these are a couple here. When you have the presentation, you can click on them. It'll send you to the App Store if you want, or you can just obviously put it in there yourself. Really quick, Lively Letters is a simple, right, letter recognition app and letter formation. Blending board, part of what is done in multisensory reading is they learn to blend the sounds. So it is a consonant and then some kind of vowel and ending sound, right? So splart nonsense, but again, that they could just decode that. So this is a free app that you can put in what skills they know and it'll make the words. I do something like this on my computer because manipulating this card takes way too long. So they make fun online ones now. What's changed is a phonemic awareness app, and Nessie, if you've never known of that one, that is a great one. Moves from letter sounds, which is the hairy letters. They're like fun, cute little activities, all the way to chip foo, which is syllabication. And there's usually a little instructional video, and then there's skills and activities that they can practice. This one is not free, but it's a couple dollars and the apps are pretty good.
All right, let me pause the recording and then we'll take any questions.
My crash course.